Good afternoon, XPANSE. Thanks for coming to our quick fireside chat. My name is Heather Gallagher. In addition to being the founding circle member of the World Experience Organization, I also have a background in computer science, global telecom, and point of interest. I was the CTO for an event called Burning Man for almost 20 years. I now work in experiential storytelling, and I've done some philosophical deep dives, and we're about to do some of those with Anthony. I will let Anthony introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Anthony Aguirre. I've been a physics professor for many years. I'm also the co-founder of the Foundational Questions Institute, which provides support for big questions in physics and cosmology, and also the Future of Life Institute, which tries to help life have a future.
So I thought we would start our chat today with Anthony with an easy question. Anthony, what is time?
What is time? I think one of my favorite philosophers, Henri Bergson, from the turn of the 20th century, said that time is invention or it is nothing at all. And I've always liked this quote, but I would amend it a little bit to say time is invention and it is nothing at all. Because time is both. Time is, in relativity, we learn that time is like space. It's like a fourth dimension. You can exchange time for space. And when you talk about that four-dimensional arena that things can play out on, everything is just sort of laid out. Nothing really happens. The future is indistinguishable in some sense from the past. There isn't a direction of time. All of those things are true. Time is nothing at all. At the same time, time is invention. Time is flowing. Time has a direction. Time is newness. There's creativity. There are things that didn't exist before. Time is intimately tied up in entropy growth and in information being created. This is also true. But there's this, all my career, I've felt this question of but which is it really? Which of these seem to be contradictory. Which is it really? And I've come to believe that this is not a question that has an answer. That nature does not owe us an answer to the question, which is it really? There's a wonderful thing about nature that I love as a physicist, which is that if you ask a well-defined question, then nature gives you an answer. But what is a well-defined question is a dialogue. It's not a monologue, and nature has something to say about it. And we've learned, like in quantum mechanics, that you can ask, is it light, a particle, or a wave? And nature says yes. Now ask a better question. And I think time, what its nature is, and also questions like, is there free will or is the universe deterministic? These are questions that need to be better, that nature doesn't owe us an answer to. And really we have two different ways of talking about the same reality. In those two different ways, there are different answers to different questions, and we have to accept that there isn't just a way that reality is. There's an interaction that we have with it, and we can learn things, but once we let go of the feeling that there is a way that reality is, it's enormously freeing, and I think that's true of time.
Well, I guess I'm under no pressure to ask a good next question now, am I? You spoke a little bit about time being all things, but can you speak more about some of the characteristics of it? Is it linear? Is it cyclical? I have studied philosophy that believes that we're in a giant waveform of time that is gently expanding and contracting. There are some that believe it's linear. You just said multidimensional. What in your studies have led you to land on the decision that you found?
Yeah, well, my second favorite crackpot letter that I've ever gotten as a physicist, I get a lot of these, went on and on and on. At the very end, it said, and I haven't been able to prove it, but I think that everything is a pyramid. So I'm going to go with time as a pyramid for that reason. But sorry, more seriously, I think in general relativity, we learned that time can have very complicated structures. So in a black hole, time can exchange places with space. And the reason you run into the black hole is so dangerous is because the center of the black hole, radius 0, that feels like it should be a place, is a time in your future. And so you can no more avoid the interior, the core of a black hole, than you can avoid 10 seconds from now. Whatever you do, you're going to end up 10 seconds from now. That's what a black hole is like. So time can get very, very strange in extreme situations in the physical universe. Time can get very, very strange in situations in the interior, in the mental universe as well, as we know. But again, I think those are both true and not contradictory, but you have to talk about them in different ways.
So time is relative.
Of course, it's relative.
That's what I thought last night while I was on a plane with screaming children all night long. Sometimes, you know how that time moves very slowly.
There is a famous quote to this effect of a hot fire and how slowly time moves.
So how can the age of AI and quantum computing help us further examine time and study it? What might the implications be there?
I think it's going to change many things. I mean, I think it's worth taking a step back and thinking about where we are. This is what I do on a regular basis, where we are in the history of the universe, where 13.8 billion years ago, our observable universe sort of fell out of some pre-existing, probably inflationary phase. 5 billion years ago or so, 4 billion years ago, the sun and the earth formed. 3 billion years ago, life formed. Then we had hundreds of millions of years where life created agency and intelligence through evolution, things that could, in some sense, have goals and plans and operate in, make decisions in support of those goals. So we had those things. And then in the past 100,000 years, we've had that intelligence beget technology and culture. And here we are, thousands of years into civilization, and now we're coming to a place where intelligence has been feeding back on first the physical world, using our intelligence to understand the physical world through physics and other means and engineer it. We've learned to apply our intelligence to biology, and that's still, more mature. It's getting more mature, but there's still a long way to go in really being able to engineer biology. And now, for the first time in the last, 10 years or so, we're applying intelligence to intelligence itself, to engineering new intelligence. And this is something that hasn't happened before. It's been suddenly, in the last 5 years, extremely successful. Narrow artificial intelligence, building systems for a particular purpose that have a particular goal and something that you can sort of maximize is essentially solved. Like, if you can specify what you want an AI system to do in some precise way, you can generally build an AI system that will do it. Now the next goal is general intelligence, and that too is being solved. There are general purpose AI systems now that can write poetry and program computers and do mathematics and create images all at the same time. The next thing that the giant companies are racing with all their might to produce is artificial general intelligence. That is a general purpose intelligence that matches the sort of flexibility and capability of the best human minds. So it's unclear exactly how far away that is, but it's no longer decades away. Most of the people who are in this field feel like it's a couple of years away, or 5 years away, or for the skeptics, 10 years away. But this is incredibly soon. In the history of the universe, this is going to be a new form of intelligence, engineering intelligence that is here, essentially. And we also have to realize that with that artificial general intelligence is going to be huge consequences that I think we're not honestly ready for. There will be superintelligence, most people believe, fairly soon after general intelligence, in that you can run a million of them 100 times faster. They can cooperate with each other. They can engineer the way they cooperate. They can engineer new intelligences. So I think the general feeling is that there could quickly be a runaway in intelligence after we go to AGI. So I think this is something, very big that we have to think very hard about whether and how we want to do it. Right now, we're not thinking that hard. we're essentially racing for the prize, or they are racing for the prize. And so we could have a long discussion about what I think we should do, but I think that's the situation we're in. Once, as these tools become more capable and more sort of entwined in all of the thinking and the science that we do, as they are becoming, I think they will dramatically enhance our ability to get things done. And I think they will create new insights.
That leads me to a question I have, which is, is it possible that AI, quantum, it's going to change our experience of time? Of course, you just sort of talked about how it's a bit fluid, or each of us is having our own experience of it. I'm already noticing, of course, you know, with various AIs at my fingertips, that now I think I can get so much, I always think I can get more done than I can get done, or I'm getting impatient when things, you know, aren't happening as quickly as I've now become used to. Do you think there'll be some sort of effect on our experience of time itself?
It's an interesting question. I think one of the things that I've noticed is how, not so much on time, but what it means to be sort of aware or conscious or have an interior life. You know, when you communicate with one of these AI systems, I think it's doing something that was completely unexpected to me, which is that these are what would be called philosophical zombies, right? That the philosophical zombie is something that seems and acts perfectly human. It does everything that a human would do, but somehow there's no light on inside. There's nothing it's like to be that thing. And I think Turing, like, most people felt like, is this possible? Is it not possible? It was unclear. Turing also had the Turing test, where he felt like if it behaves, if it answers like a human, we sort of have to attribute humanity to it. Like, if we can't distinguish from the outside, we sort of have to. Here we have a strange situation where we have these systems that absolutely can pass the Turing test and act just like a person, indistinguishable from a person, at least in text only, and yet we feel quite confident that they're nothing like a person inside. For one thing, they have no sense of time. You type something to ChatGPT, you come back a year later and type in something new, and it's like sort of the next instant for that system, right? So they have no sense of time, they have no sense of self-reflective awareness. They have some level of self-awareness, but you know, there are all kinds of complicated aspects. But to be able to interact with a system that acts and thinks in some sense very much like a human, but is utterly, utterly different internally, I think it's just a fascinating thing. I mean, it's scary and weird, but really fascinating.
And it also does not have its own will. It's not creative instinct. It might eventually learn self-preservation, but it's not having some sort of, having talked to computers my whole life and knowing literally what's going on in the insides of it. It's hard, that creative soul that we as humans have, it just doesn't have that urge to sort of self-promote or create things, right? It's just a responsive system, but it's really good. It's pretty charming sometimes.
Yeah.
So AI, time, these are big questions. Why is it important for us to ask these and to study these?
Well, I think the big questions are, you know, we stumble into the reasons that we have to know the answers to the big questions, or at least address the big questions. So I think with AI, we can talk about physics in a minute, but with AI, there have been these questions that have been lingering around forever, like what is consciousness, what is mind, what is intelligence, what is free will, what is agency. These are things that we could talk about in some sense before, but we only had sort of one example, which was us. And we had a little bit of an example in, you know, animals and things, but you couldn't really talk to them. So on one hand, AI is giving us an amazing new tool to talk about these foundational questions. At the same time, AI is sort of demanding of us that we have a way of thinking about these foundational questions. We're going to be building AI systems that are going to tell us that they are conscious and aware, and we are not going to know whether we can believe them or not. And what do we do with that? Right? If we don't understand what it takes to make a physical system conscious in the sense that we have to care about what its feelings are or what its preferences are, we're either going to think that they're more conscious than they actually are, or less. We're almost certainly going to get it wrong. This is a really important question. Similarly, we have a debate right now as to, you know, how is AI really reasoning? Is it really deciding? Is it really intelligent? What do we mean by this? Like, there's a sense, people have a sense of what is really intelligence by, you know, what humans are doing. Meanwhile, AI systems are solving physics problems as well as a physics grad student, so they're very smart in some sense. So there's this huge debate that is going on that I think will have dramatic import in like how we manage this development of AI, which we're quite uninformed about because we haven't really addressed those fundamental questions early enough. Like we sort of missed the boat in really thinking through some of those core issues before AI actually came. So I think we're a little bit behind the times, but it's not over yet. I think we can still do some foundational thinking about what it means to be an agent, what it means to be intelligent, alive, conscious, all of these things. I think in a bigger sense, these foundational questions sort of are our place in the universe. Like if you go through life never asking yourself, what is it all about? Where is my life going? What's the meaning of it? This feels like an impoverished life, and I wouldn't want us as a civilization to go through our civilizational life like that either.
I agree. I always suggest while washing the dishes, take a moment and observe the miracle that you are. So what do you think it's going to look like in the future as humans and AI begin to integrate further?
Yeah. Well, this is largely up to us, and we've got some hard decisions to make. I think if we want humanity to essentially stay relevant, I think this is just what it comes down to. We have to make some hard decisions about what sorts of AI systems we want to develop. I think if we develop super intelligent AI systems that are far more capable than humans across sort of all domains, and they're running 100 times faster than we are with 1,000,000 times as much knowledge, we are not going to be in charge of that planet for very long. I think that's just a fact. So we have to think hard about whether we want to be in a planet where we are not determining what happens, but we're sort of along for the ride. Maybe that'll be a pleasant ride, and maybe it won't, but we won't be at the steering wheel anymore. I'm staunchly pro-human. Many of my favorite people are human. So I'm in favor of humanity sort of staying in charge and sticking around. I think if we want that to happen, there's a few things we need to do. We need to first not build super intelligent AI. Not anytime soon. We just shouldn't do it. We have to be quite careful with the sort of human level AI that we are building. And because it's going to have capabilities that we don't, even if its intelligence is roughly human level. Human level AI could copy itself. It could share direct knowledge with each other. It can run many times faster by just scaling up the computation. And I think we have to think about, is that really what we want? What I've been thinking about lately is a kind of fun idea of building in more humanity to these AI systems by giving us some of the same limitations that we have. Like, if it were possible, and it is, to prevent AI systems from being able to read their own mind and tinker with it, maybe that's a good thing. Like, we can't reach in there and mess with our own mind. We're sort of limited in that way. We can't copy ourselves into another body. Maybe that would be cool and fun, but we can't do it, so why should we let the AI do it? Like, they shouldn't get all the fun. So I think we should be thinking about fundamental ways in which we want the AI to stay at the sort of level that we can interact with it, we can really have it as a sort of co-citizen, or as a tool, which I think is the far safer way to go with AI. But if we're going to have human level AI, we should think about building in basic things that keep it human level, that keep it operating sort of as humans do, not copying itself all over, not cloning itself all over, not running 100 times as fast. And there are ways, using hardware and cryptography mechanisms that exist now, to sort of build some of those controls and limitations into the AI systems that we have. And that's something that we've been thinking about quite a bit at the Future of Life Institute.
I mean, I've had some pretty interesting conversations with ChatGPT. And interestingly, you say let's make them a bit more humans, but for anybody who has ever studied meditation or has learned self-reflective or awareness and is actually trying to learn how do I have sovereignty over my own reactions and understand my own mind. So in a way, it exists in the state that a lot of us are trying to reach on a good day, the irony there. And you're saying make them more like us.
Well, make it more like us in the sense that we're embodied beings, right? And AI is this pure software thing. I think we'd be better off if the software was more tied to an embodiment, like humans are. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about humans. But it is very, very different. So, yeah, but the point about self-reflection, I think that is an amazing thing that we have that AI currently doesn't. And that when it starts to become more self-aware and more self-reflexive, that's going to be opening up a whole new can of worms. We'll see how that goes.
Why don't you tell us really quickly about some of the work that you're doing in terms of helping us to prepare some guardrails around our AI development?
Yeah, so the Foundational Questions Institute, many of you may have seen the open letter that we released like a year ago, calling for a pause on giant AI experiments. We still sort of feel like there should be a pause, but more importantly, just not build the superintelligence, terrible idea, build the amazing tools that we can use AI for instead. figure out the problems that we want to solve and build the tools to solve them. I think these are things that we should have a cultural shift towards and a corporate shift toward and a policy shift towards, and we're trying to make that happen.
So speaking of time, we are out of it. Or are we? I'll leave you with that question. Thank you, everybody, for your attention, and thank you, Anthony, for your wonderful insights.
Lovely to talk with you. Thanks a lot.